today is Alara Sage, the Oracle of Wealth. And I am so excited to have you here, Alara. How are you today?
I'm really happy to be here and really look forward to this conversation.
Me too. And I believe my guests as well, because one of the things that is on the top of our minds is how can we create wealth? And so let me ask you, according to the word wealth, does that only applies to money?
It's such a great question. And I love this question because I personally don't believe it does. Through my own personal process, what I've gone through, I've really connected to the wisdom of wealth and what that means. And as I've connected to that and really desired to learn from the wisdom of wealth, what I've learned is that wealth is resource. And
Hmm.
different people can absolutely view the word resource in different manners. But money is most definitely one of those resources. And of course, the one that is really at the forefront of our awareness. But also, food is a resource, shelter is a resource, community connections are a resource. So, being wealthy is being well resourced.
I love that answer because it hits everything. And I truly believe that wealth has so many facets. And just feeling happy when you live a happy and healthy life, that's wealth. So it goes far beyond money. But one of the things that struck me in your bio was the fact that you are very wealthy on the financial side. You owned a six-figure business, but then you lost it all. So tell us about that experience of yours, because that is very hard.
Yes. And this was the experience that began teaching me these concepts of the wisdom of wealth. I, as you mentioned, had a six-figure business and had plenty of money and really didn't look at my money, didn't really have a strong relationship with my money. It was coming in. What did I need to look at it for? And then I had this very powerful spiritual experience where I had a communion with God, which at the time I didn't even really use that word God uh, because I wasn't religiously inclined. But that was the word that came through. And that was absolutely the presence that I experienced. It was very, very profound to the point of just being in this pure bliss and love and presence and not needing anything, not desiring or needing anything. That lasted about a month and a half. And then after that, I was plummeted into, in spirituality, what we call a dark night of the soul. And first and foremost, what happened was my money was stolen. And I was told this was going to happen by my higher self. And even though I was told it was going to happen, it didn't, for one, make it not happen because I was aware of it. But two, it didn't necessarily make it any easier. And when all of my money was stolen, my first initial reaction was fear, as I think everybody would be. But I was able to move through that fairly quickly.
So
And
can I ask you, when you say your money was stolen, did
Mhm.
you have it in a safe somewhere or under your pillow when somebody came and stole it?
No, it was through a scam, which was very interesting because I feel like I'm very aware of those energies. I don't feel privy to scams, but the way that it all happened was very otherworldly, for lack of better description. It's very hard for me to try to describe how it happened, but I felt like I was kind of like overtaken um, in my consciousness and in my awareness
Mhm.
temporarily while it occurred.
So are you inclined to share with our listeners, because you said a scam and I was scammed too, but not six figures, so it was just like a, like a smaller amount compared to that. But I think it's also important to understand, okay, maybe someone can avoid that exact thing that you went through. I don't know if you're open to share that or not.
Yeah, it's not really being about open to share. It's more that I don't really recognize it as an important part of even the aspect of preventative measures. Because what I learned as I went through the process was I actually had a very dysfunctional relationship with money. So the scam, I believe that we create our realities, and it's not always easy to hear those things. And I don't mean that we create purposefully uh, trauma and difficult
Mhm.
in our lives. That's not at all what I mean. And people can get very triggered when we hear that because it it's often misconstrued. And so I don't mean that people are out there purposefully. I didn't purposefully create that scam. I didn't purposefully create a loss of my money. But there was an aspect of my being at a deeper level, at a soul level, that needed me to recognize what I was doing. I wasn't listening. My higher self was giving me very clear messages. I'm very connected to my higher self, and I wasn't listening. And I had a dysfunctional relationship with money. Like I said, I couldn't look at it. I couldn't really address it. I didn't feel connected to it. And so the experience that was created was meant to support me in the recognition of my dysfunction.
Mhm. And what do you think your dysfunction came from?
Well, definitely. I mean, the vast majority of humanity has a dysfunction around money. And it really comes down to, as I mentioned, the relationship to money. We are taught money's bad, money's evil. If you have a lot of money, you're greedy. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money is scarce. And then simultaneously, in our reality, we need money for everything. So there's what's called a double message. Money's bad, don't want it, don't be greedy, don't be selfish. Oh, but we need it for everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's a push. It creates an inner conflict. It creates a push pull in your psyche. Well, I need it, but no, I shouldn't want it. But I need no, I should, and you just keep pushing and pulling. So this is very related to when we look at relationship styles. When we talk about attachment styles, there's books on that, right? Attachment styles of relationships. They talk about anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. That's that same kind of push pull. Well, I want an intimate relationship, but it creates anxiety within me when I have it, when I don't have it. I want an intimate relationship, but I push those people away, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same concept.
Hmm. So now you teach others to have a better relationship with the money. So how do you get to the being the oracle of wealth? So tell us through your journey that you had overcoming and realizing the dysfunctional relationship that you had with money that then led you to that new path that you are on. How was that journey for you?
I was already supporting people and working with people as a mentor. And I am an experiential learner. I learn very much through my own experience. And then I use those experiences to help my clients. And it was a profound experience for me because when my money was stolen, my first belief was, I've got this. After I moved the fear out of my body, I've always been very good at creating my reality and manifesting what I desired. Even as a kid, my family would always say to me, how do you do it? You always just manifest what you want. And I didn't actually know how I did it. And I learned over the years. So I thought, you know what? I've got this. I'll just recreate it. But I hadn't addressed the dysfunction. So I didn't recreate it. Instead, my business collapsed and I went into debt. And it took that even deeper step down for me to pause and say, okay, I'm aware of all of this, but I'm obviously still in denial, which I
Mhm.
was. I was still in denial. And it took that moment of really turning and saying, okay, I really desire to know. I desire to learn, humbly kind of symbolically dropping to my knees and saying, "Teach me." And having the energy of wealth, the consciousness of wealth and of money show me, higher self said, ask money how you show up in the relationship. Yeah, money was like, you don't. You only come to me when you want something, and the rest of the time you ignore me and push me away and don't want to look at me. And so it was through all of that self-awareness of really desiring to see all of the different patterns, habits, behaviors, and belief structures that I had within myself, that I was then able to shift it around for myself and recreate my wealth. And then really understanding that we are in an era right now where this is a part of what humans are desiring to go through. We are desiring to ultimately heal our relationship with money and obtain the relationship to wealth.
Hmm.
And so through my process and connecting to how we're moving into this in the future because I have prophetic abilities, then it all just transpired for me to support others through this process.
Yes, and you said, or let me ask you this, how can we use quantum physics, because we're talking about, seeing also the future. How do we, how can we use quantum physics to create wealth?
Such a delicious conversation. So, yes, it's about understanding that there is a version of you that exists in wealth, right? So, I love to use our primary geniuses of the world, athletes, these kinds of beings that we've all seen. We've all seen them accomplish amazing things, like the Wright brothers, right? The Wright brothers could envision themselves flying. They knew within themselves that it was possible. That was not their initial experience. And that was not what everybody told them. Everybody was like, this is not possible, right? You cannot fly. But they could see it and they believed it. And so, what happens when we do that is we are connecting at a vibrational level to the aspect of that reality. Okay. And so, this is in quantum physics, this is known as the quantum field where all potential exists. Okay. And so, this is what geniuses do. They're called visionaries, right? Because they envision these possibilities. And to some extent, they're rather delusional, right? They hold on to it and they say, no, I'm going to create this. And so what they start to do is they start to identify with that version of themselves. Okay. So when we start to identify with, so for instance, let me bring this back to ourself, right? Let's say that you're making $10,000 a month in your business and you really want to make $30,000 a month in your business. There is an identity shift that has to occur. The version of you that is making 10K a month has, and this goes for whether you're an entrepreneur or you have a career, has particular belief patterns, habits, behaviors, just like I spoke to about myself,
Mhm.
that are different than the version of you that is making $30,000 a month. So
Absolutely.
you have to shift your identity. And this is what we call a quantum leap, where you take on those beliefs, those habits, those patterns. You essentially become that version of yourself. And as you become that version of yourself, you create that reality. And we do this in quantum physics and understanding biology as well. We do this through our emotions because there are emotions tied to that version of you that's making the 30K. You are feeling different emotions. And so through activating ourselves in those emotions, we actually speak to our biology at a cellular level. This is epigenetics. And our cells start to resonate, quote unquote, take on these beliefs and program our physical structure in that new energy.
I love what you're just saying because it makes so much sense. More and more people uh, share this new, it's not a new concept, but for
It's
many
not.
people
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
for many people it's new. But many people, especially thought leaders and someone like you, Alara, are teaching these concepts of quantum leaps, of seeing themselves in the future. And I often, when I work with my clients on how they can improve their business, I just also do like really time travel with them, right? Um, and the most important part is what you mentioned too. It's something changed in their biology, how you feel, because our emotions create motion, and also how we dress, how we see ourselves. And now, if someone listens to this conversation and said, "Oh yeah, I want to do this," is there a time where you think someone is ready to do this quantum leap in their business?
Such a great question. A couple of different things there. There are times where astrologically there is more supportive energy, and you can kind of feel a buzz in the air. A lot of people will be talking about, up leveling or shifting, or, you'll feel it in, if you're online and social media, you can see it a lot. And that's more of a collective energy, and the astrological aspects that support these kinds of processes. But that doesn't mean you have to wait for one of those. What I recognize is in our businesses, there's oftentimes signals that it's ready for a quantum leap. And these signals can be a couple of things. For one, they can be where strategy that worked before stops working, or all of a sudden isn't as working as well, right? The way that you maybe did things in the past, all of a sudden, gee, that's been working for how long and now it's not working, right?
Yeah.
Because the energies are already starting to shift at a subtle level for you. Another example is you start to become bored,
Hmm. I
bored
can
with
relate to that.
your business, like just kind of lacking that lit feeling, that passion that we love in our businesses. And the final one that I'll bring in is new people, new opportunities. You might start to see perhaps different kind of clientele coming into your space, or kind of new opportunities that, whoa, that seems to be entering. These are all signals that you are ready for a quantum leap.
Oh, I love it, and I can so relate to it. Uh, Me as a former actress and performer, I
Mm,
had a business, a performing arts school, and the first years were just so amazing and exciting. But
mm,
as it went along, and I also started shifting, I wrote books and started speaking more, then I could feel that pull into a new direction. And but there was that fear that held me back to take that next quantum leap, so to speak, because there's always fear attached to it. And in my case it was, hey, I had this business, this was held in a building that I had to pay the mortgage, so I could not
mm.
just close the business. I still had to pay the mortgage. So there was that fear attached. So if something like that happens, now I'm past that, thank God for some time, but I just wanted to bring this up because I'm sure that many people find themselves in a similar situation where they're feeling that pull, but there is that fear of, I can't. How would you help them, or what advice would you give them?
The best way is through the quantum mechanics and understanding that when you visualize yourself as that person, you can also journal. It's really great to bring the visuals into the tangible through journaling. Write out. I have my clients literally speak to that version of themselves and have that version of themselves describe how their life is showing up, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing on a overview level as well as a day-to-day level, and write that out in present tense. I am doing this, really connecting to the energy. Because what happens is, first off, imagination is very powerful, because this is understood in neuroscience that your brain doesn't know the difference between an envisioned imaginative state and quote unquote reality. So
Hmm.
when you envision, when you imagine, your brain is saying, "Whoa, this is happening," right? As well as when you said, when we bring in those emotions, energy in motion, we're really connecting to the emotions attached to, connected to that version of us. We are signaling to our cells because our cells receive information, and that's how they get programmed. Again, epigenetics. So when we're bringing in those emotions, we're literally telling ourselves as well as our mind, hey, this is happening. So what happens is what we fear is the unknown. The fear is of the unknown. And that fear is important, right? Because it's just keeping us safe. That's all it's doing. But when you make the unknown known, the fear goes away because you're making it real. You're saying, oh, this is happening right now. This is me. This is me. And all of a sudden the mind's like, oh, this isn't unknown. This is who I am.
Yes, yes. And I can also uh, add to that because I started shifting at that stage in my life when I really wanted to make that shift. Uh, but I put myself in a different environment. I actually moved to a different state. I still had my business in that, and so I put myself in that new environment. That's for real. So that's one technique. But as you said, you can also do it emotionally in your mind through meditation and whatnot. And but here's another important part. If the universe, I believe, gives you always as much as you can take, and at one point you have to say, this is it, no longer, and don't care about the outcome. And that's actually was at my end. I said, okay, you know what, I'm done. I am done. I'm so done, and I'm just going to make it public. I will, and that was always the hardest part, I think, to make it public to your customers or friends, family, to really stand, make a decision, and then verbally uh, make that announcement. And you know the funny thing that happens, because the universe gives you always the clues, all of a sudden everything started falling in place, and within 6 months or 7 months, my business was sold and I was able to move on. You just have to take that leap of faith as well.
Absolutely. The bold action. Yes. Action actualizes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just so much great information and that you shared with us. And I believe that someone who's listening to this conversation might want to learn more, or might find themselves in a situation to say, you know what, I could use some help. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what would be the best way?
Absolutely. My website is alarasage.com. They can reach out there. They can also email me info@alarasage.com. I really enjoy connecting to people directly, and I'm really here for them. If they have
Yeah,
questions, if they're curious, they can just send me an email and I'll happily reply to them.
great. And I will make sure to put a link in the show notes as well, where I think they can get a free gift from you.
Yes, absolutely. I have my quantum wealth blueprint that really helps them move through this process in their businesses.
Perfect, perfect. Wow. Yeah, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, something that they can do right now, which is a simple step to get them started, what would that be?
The first step is always about who that version of you is, obtaining crystal clarity as to what I like to call that avatar, and really beginning to connect to the lifestyle of that person. But first and foremost, have that target. Without the target, you can't throw the dart.
That's very well said. Without the target, you can't throw the dart. So that's your target. Everybody listening here, just picture yourself the way you want to see yourself. I often say it in my trainings that I did as performers. we have to step into a character.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
nothing different.
Mm.
Sometimes you just have to pretend the make
Yes.
believe to then eventually become that. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's all about becoming, because we have to
Mm.
become the person we are meant to be, to live the life we are destined to live. And I know you all have a life that is worth and that you are destined to live. So thank you so much, Lara, for being here today.
Thank you, Sabine. It was such a wonderful conversation.
All right,
Perfect.
we've done that. So,
Yay. Looks like
yay.